Of course, the first thing I'm focusing on is safety of our students and our staff in relationship to the pandemic. And so this week, the cabinet, my direct reports, that we've been working very hard on that for the first week of school after the break. So we'll report on that to the school board Monday. So that's the first thing I'm focused on. The second thing, as you all are aware, there's the ESSER dollars, the ARP dollars here that will result in a number of initiatives of programs. I want to make sure that those new initiatives that will be funded from the ARP dollars are adequately integrated with the current programs that we have in place, mission critical, acceleration schools, and then of course the proposals that are coming in from the community. And so make sure that we have those all considered together as we look at the academic aims that we have for our children. And then the second thing associated with that is the adequate implementation of those initiatives. So we want to make sure that we have structures in place to ensure we have accountability and supports for the folks that will be implementing those initiatives.
Hi, I'm Florida Boardman from ABC News 4. My question is on the Reimagined schools proposal that is being voted on Monday. Do you have a stance on this or anything to say to those who criticize the proposal, saying it hasn't had enough community input?
I do not have a stance on it. I first became involved in the Reimagined Schools proposal maybe 2 months ago, just looking at it from a financial standpoint. I have not been involved in terms of the actual aims that it purports to accomplish. So what I've done this week since I've been on the job, which obviously was my first week, is I've engaged with, again, the senior staff, chief academic officer and others in the district to make sure that they have an opportunity to fully understand what the proposal does, how it integrates with the plans that they have, and the actual work that they have been involved in. Monday morning at 8:30, this past Monday morning, I met with all of our principals. We talked about the Reimagined Schools proposal. I had a follow-up meeting with a group of principals yesterday, and so I'm waiting for input from them, and before I make a determination how I actually view and whether I would support or not support. But certainly at this point, I'm not opposed to the plan, but I just don't have enough information at this point to take a position. But I will be prepared to talk with the school board.
Mr. Kennedy, I'm with ABC News 4 as well. I'm Ann Emerson. I have a question about your background and why the community here, the school community, you want them to have faith in your leadership abilities. Now, there's two things that we've been looking at, and one of them is your background at the Baltimore City Schools, where you left when there was a $130 million deficit and the school system was collapsing with financial concerns. And there was also a concern back in Seattle, at Seattle schools where you left after there was some money that was allegedly misappropriated or they weren't being able to account for it. Talk to me about why the community here in Charleston needs to have confidence in your leadership with these background questions. Well,
first of all, these are complex systems, complex funding mechanism. And so the Seattle, that was a long time ago. So since I've left Seattle, I've worked in other systems, Boston, and as you indicated, Baltimore City Public Schools. But I would say here with Charleston, this is my second time, I think as most of you all know, working here. The first time I was the chief financial and chief operating officer for the district. I was hired because at that time in 2004, the district had just gone through a really significant fiscal challenge and with the first school construction, 5-year school construction program. So I was hired to be able to pull that under control. We did that. If you take a look at the debt structure that we put in place at that time, the district will be out of debt completely in about 10 years. That's a direct result of the work that I did when I was here the first time. And we take a look at our audits on our school construction program that we do roughly every 3 or 4 years. Since the processes that we put in place when I was here the first time, we have had no problem since, and those audits support that. And the second thing about the Charleston County School District, when I came back here in 2018, the district had just undergone another fiscal crisis when we had a shortfall in the general operating fund budget. Our reserve account at the time when I came back, we call it fund balance, was significantly under what the recommendations are about governing structures around the country. And so currently our fund balance is almost doubled since then. It was reported by the auditors this past December that our fund balance is around $145 million versus the $70 million or so. So I'll put in processes here in Charleston County School District to make sure that we have a strong financial position for the district. And the third thing I would say is that as a part of my foresight in succession planning, I thought with Dr. Postlewaite last year about this time about creating a succession plan for me, creating a new position, a deputy CFO position, and that position has been filled by a person who has a lot of great experience in finance, in K-12 finance.
Forrest. Sir, Forrest Unger from Lucy, nice to meet you. Nice to talk to you. With students this year, how have they done coming back into class in person? They've had to deal with remassing based on the way. But how has their performance done, somewhat compared to last year, where they were decently virtual for a good period of time?
When you say this year, you're talking about this calendar year or of the school year? So I think for this school year, for the entire school year, our students in a much better position than they were last year. We have more students in class in person than we did the first year of the pandemic. I think in North Charleston, in the first year of the pandemic, for example, there were fewer students than some other, percentage-wise, in other parts of the county. That has improved. We still are focused on, obviously, the safety protocols, and as well as the academic performance of the students. And we have a strong academic team, chief academic officer, that's leading that work. I have not seen, since I started the job this week, the student data that indicate where we are, but that's part of the structure that I'm working with the senior staff, and we're reviewing that type of data as we meet.
Nick Reagan, Live 5 News. Sir, what experience do you have inside the actual classroom, and do you think that, or do you feel that experience sets you up in a position to advocate or present how teachers are feeling to the school board?
I'm sorry, what experience do I have inside the classroom?
Correct.
Well, so I'm not a teacher. I am not a teacher, so I do not have experience in the classroom. I come from a family of educators. I have a sister who spent 30-something years as a teacher. My mother was a long-term teacher. My wife just retired from teaching this past June, so I've been around educators all of my life. But my leadership style is more of a collaborative, so I don't come across with people that I engage with throughout the organization as the expert. So I recognize that principals are the key to our success here with our students. And that's why the very first meeting that I had on day one at 8:30 this past Monday was with all of our principals. I met with 3 sets of principals this week alone, and we'll continue to engage with them. I have meetings on my calendar to engage with teacher groups. We have a teacher cabinet that's an extensive group of people, teachers. We have the Teachers of the Year. I have that group on my calendar, as well as other representatives of the teaching force, so that I can understand what their needs are. And so my leadership style is not to direct them, but it's to engage with others who the educators report to make sure that they get the supports they need.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Hannah with the Multi News. My question is related to the substitute teacher shortages, especially in regards to teachers, being impacted by COVID or whatever along those lines with the substitute teachers.
Yeah, so I had my first cabinet meeting this past Tuesday. At that meeting, we agreed to the cabinet, that is, those are all the other chief officers, that we would meet daily for 30 to 45 minutes, sort of like a stand-up to address where we are with staffing shortages, the case counts with the pandemic, Yesterday, we discussed the substitute teachers and the shortfalls that we have there. We made a decision then to increase the rate of pay for substitute teachers and also to give bonuses for substitute teachers. So that's being implemented this coming Monday. In the stand-up this morning, we identified the source of funds for that, so that is a decision that's already been made and addressed.
How much is that rate of pay, can you share?
I'm sorry.
You said you're increasing the rate of pay for substitute teachers, can you share how much that is?
I don't have the exact number. I think it's $25. It's part of that is a rate increase in the rate, as well as incentives for X number of days to work during the week. The total dollar amount for that implementation is $1.6 million.
Hi, I have one more question on Reimagined Schools. So you said you had met with principals and discussed this. What was discussed? What did you guys talk about? What are their concerns, and how are you solving their concerns?
So the meeting I had with all principals on Monday, there were several things on the items, the agenda for me to discuss and for them to ask questions. They brought up the Reimagined schools, the principals whose schools are in that proposal. They requested of me an opportunity for them to meet with Mr. Darren Goss with the Coastal Community Foundation, the architect, the author of the proposal. So that was their first ask of me. That was on a Monday. We met with Mr. Goss, those principals did, and I, on Tuesday afternoon. And so they had an opportunity then to hear from Mr. Goss about the specifics of the proposal, the thinking of it from his perspective and his team's perspective. And they were able then to ask questions and express their concerns. And so I will take that and discuss it with my cabinet, and then we'll determine how to communicate those questions and concerns to the school board.
Mr. Kennedy, tell me why you want to be superintendent right now. Why did you want to go into this role when you have stayed a CFO for the most part, and as you said, don't have that background as a teacher? And talk to me about your relationship as well, if you don't mind, as a second part, about your relationship with the board. How is your relationship with the board?
Well, my relationship is just starting with the board as the interim superintendent. As the CFO, I had what I would say a very effective relationship with the school board. I worked through the Art and Finance Committee primarily with my work, and so it was very good. So I feel good about coming into the role as it relates to my relationship with the school board. The reason why I want to do this work, when I'm from South Carolina, I grew up here in Fairfield County. I mentioned that my mother is an educator. There's some things that she wanted to get accomplished in her life through education. She got some of those accomplished with students, and some things she didn't. So when I had an opportunity to come back here again in 2018 to be able to actually work with staff in the community around how we improve educational outcomes for all of our students, that's what I've been working on. And so as I get towards the end of my career, I see this as an opportunity to be able to support the system. And again, I mentioned a minute ago that when I was asked what my focus would be, my focus is not to change the educational practices or the approaches that our educators are taking towards education. My focus is to determine how can we make sure that whatever that's being implemented, whether it's acceleration schools, whether it's the mission critical, whatever those academic initiatives, how can we put structures in place to make sure that we have an effective implementation? So when I take a look at the history here, and I go back and I look at the various programs that we've tried over time, there are quite a few. And so the question is, how can we make those programs more effective? So that's why I want to do this, to make sure that I have an opportunity to provide the supports to our teachers and our principals in our community.
So what are your goals for improvement for the school district going forward? that you've been set so far?
But so again, this is week one, and so I don't have those goals set. I don't have like a unilateral set of goals. I work through other staff. And this past December 14th, the senior staff, that would be the chief officers and an extended group of executive leaders, we had an all-day meeting, off-site meeting, to talk about how we would use the ESSER dollars to further the academic aims of the district. This past Monday, we had a follow-up, a 4-hour meeting to continue that work. And so I will meet with principals next Thursday, I think it is, to review what the work we did. And so in collaboration with the executive team and principals, then we would set a set of goals. And so it won't be Don's goals or Don Kennedy's goals. It would be the goals of that collective body that we would take to the school board. And that's set, by the way, for January 24th. So this coming Monday, I anticipate that we will inform the school board of the process that we're going through. And then on the 24th at that board meeting, we will lay out those goals.
What does communication currently look like between you and the former superintendent, since I do believe she's still technically on staff through the end of the summer?
I have not been communicating with Dr. Postlewaite.
What do you want parents and students to know about you?
About me?
Yeah.
Is that my life was transformed through education. I have come from a large family. There's 8 children. All 8 of us are college graduates. No one in either side of my family, no my mother's side or my father's side, ever attended college when they were kids, when they came out of high school. So my children, my grandchildren, my nieces, my nephews, all their lives have been transformed through the fact that my siblings and I were able to get a really good education. And so what I would want the community to know that in my tenure that I have here, that's my focus, to be able to provide the supports that's necessary to give every child an opportunity for the same type of life improvements that occurred with me.
Tom, you need water? Good? It wasn't implying you had to. Sorry about that.
We've heard from a number of community members who are concerned about the possible resignation last week. Do you plan on increasing any transparency at superintendent, interim superintendent?
Well, so that relationship is between Dr. Postlewaite and the school board. So I'm not involved in that process.
So you spoke some about how your plan is to implement things better and try to get programs through easier and just improve this implementation process for different programs to help better schools. What is the route you plan on taking that's different from the one in the past that you hope will better implement programs and help our schools?
So I have a background that's military, background that's corporate, and background that my master's degree is in organizational systems renewal. That's all about how do you operate within a complex organization to make systems implementation. And so I have been working since I've been here for the last 4 years, working with people, talking about some of those strategies, designing some of those strategies. And so now it's a matter of just adopting what I've been working on for the last 4 years, specifically here in Charleston, but essentially my entire professional career.
Well, tell me a little bit more about your background. Just a follow-up question on what we talked about earlier. Why did you leave Baltimore in 2017 and come back to South Carolina?
Well, there's a 2-part answer to that. Again, I've been in the workforce in a number of organizations, military, corporate world, and the multiple K-12 systems. In all those systems that I've worked in, there have always been leadership changes. Some of the leadership changes have entailed changes in staff, some have not. So, for instance, in this leadership change here locally, the strong leadership team that's in place will stay in place. So I'm not moving people out. When the new superintendent came, when I went to Baltimore, I was hired as part of a incoming administration. That superintendent brought some of his staff in. The same thing happened when the new superintendent came in. When she came in, the chief financial officer was replaced. That was me. The chief operating officer was replaced. The chief information officer, and I believe the chief legal counsel and the chief academic officer and the chief of staff. So she brought in the superintendent brought in her own team, and so that's why I left Baltimore City Public Schools, and why I came back here, because I saw it was an opportunity for the capstone of my career to be able to be an assistant in South Carolina, where I'm culturally attuned to our students.
You left on your own.
I'm sorry?
You left on your own,
Yeah.
on your own terms to come back to.
So what is your overall goal with this Reimagined School plan and the goals of you and as well as the district for this?
Well, so I don't have goals right now for the Reimagined Schools. As you know, the ESSER dollars, the ARP ESSER dollars, ESSER 3 is $163 million. So Reimagined Schools is only a part of that. We have other proposals coming from other community groups. So number one, I need to understand what the components of all of the proposals, which ones have merit, which ones integrate well with the academic work that's currently taking place in the district. I mentioned a few minutes ago the acceleration schools, where the acceleration schools team have been working on that work for about 2 years now. And so how do the proposals that's coming in from the outside, how do the additional dollars that we are going to spend in CCSD, how do all those things integrate with each other? And then again, going back, and then once we figure that out, how do we make sure that we have structures in place for effective implementation?
What, if anything, can you tell us about how the search for the next superintendent will go, and would you put your hat into the ring for that position?
So I don't know what the search process looks like, or whether the board has even discussed that. And again, this is week one for me, so I certainly haven't thought that far into the future.
Can you talk a little bit about teacher retention and how you'll support and encourage teachers to stay in their jobs?
So today I'm not prepared to say exactly what should be done. I mentioned a few minutes ago that I have on my calendar to meet with various teacher groups. I'm really interested in their input on what they see as what would be effective. I have a good relationship with the district's chief human resources officer, Bill Brigman. So I have been meeting with him to try and understand some of his thinking on teacher recruitment and retention. I can say, for instance, this has been several months ago, maybe going back to the summer, under the ESSER $2, we approved, sent to the state for approval, $1.8 million for minority teacher recruitment. That program is well underway. I think that's a big kickoff on part of that, in fact, today. So working with the HR professionals, and then understanding from the teachers what their challenges are and what are some of the challenges in the profession that leads to retention problems.
I think we'll be able to, everybody should go to one question, and I don't think it's about the half-hour mark before we start. So right down the road again, we'll time everybody for more questions. Good.
Perfect. How are you planning on meeting with schools through this current surge of COVID-19?
Well, I would say that I'm going to continue the protocols and the processes that are already in place. I mean, from our operations department, that department as well as our academic department, those departments have done an exceptional job on that. As you all are aware, that since the first year of the pandemic, for the full 2 years of the pandemic, we have had our kids, our children in school, in person, at least for those parents who felt that was appropriate. So we never went 100% virtual. And so the intent is if we had to close any schools or classrooms down, that's like a last resort. So we meet every at least 30 to 45 minutes every day, at least for the first 2 weeks of school reopening, so that we can make sure that we understand what the caseloads are. Also, over the first year of the pandemic, we invested a lot of our dollars, both the CARES Act as well as General Operating Fund, in terms of safety protocols, creating a filtration system, improving those in our HVAC system. I've also been the chief operating officer in school districts in the country, and I can say for certain that our systems here, our HVAC system, our school buildings are really, really top notch. And so from a safety standpoint, that's good. We're doing contract tracing. We have vaccination that we're offering. We have the mask compliance mandate that's in place. So I will continue working with staff to continue the safety protocols that have been in place and we have been enhancing for the last 2 years. And so safety is number one. Once we ensure that our students and our staff are safe, the second priority is to make sure that the schools stay open.
Hi, so on Monday, if Reimagined Schools is passed, what is your plan for the implementation of the project?
So the funding of the proposals, whether it's the Reimagined proposal or other proposals, they come under federal funding guidelines. And so the first thing that we would need to do is make sure that whatever components of the grant that's going to, the Reimagined School program is going to be put in place, that staff understand how they fit into, those components fit into the requirements of the federal grants. And so it'd be a planning process. Effective planning is the starting point of this type of effective structure to indicate we need to put in place.
And Mr. Kennedy, tell me what you learned during your time during that massive deficit issue in Baltimore that you're going to be able to do to make sure that doesn't happen here in Charleston County, that we're able to work within our budget. What lessons did you take away from that time?
If you go back and take a look at the financial condition of Charleston County School District when I came here in 2018, it was precarious. I have worked effectively with the finance staff to establish financial analysis, financial projections, and taking those monthly to the Audit and Finance Committee. And so I meet with the Audit and Finance Committee monthly. I take a monthly financial report. I take monthly financial projections. In the history that we've had here in the last 3.5 years since I agreed to be the CFO again, is that what I have projected how we would end the year financially is exactly how we have ended each of those 3 years. So if you take a look at our fund balance, our reserve account, it has steadily increased over the last 3 to 4 years. The lessons I learned is make sure that I work with the Audit and the Finance Committee and make sure that my staff understands the financial projection process.
So how have the vaccine clinics been doing over the past couple of months for the younger students in the county? Forget what the age range was in talking about. How has that been going? Have you seen people be receptive to this option that you all continue to put forward?
Yeah. Well, so since I've been on the job this week, I have not actually looked at those numbers, but with our chief operating officer in our stand-up meetings each day this week, Mr. Jeff Barori, we talk about what issues are out there, what problems that we need to work through. The issue of the vaccines, that has not come up as an issue. So my assumption is that things are running smoothly. And we'll spend more time when I have an opportunity, my staff, when I have an opportunity next week for an expanded meeting versus 30-minute stand-up.
Can you just break down exactly what happened in Seattle?
No.
All right. Well,
I'm not. It's been years since I thought about Seattle. Last Wednesday night when I went home after the announcement here about my appointment, and I turned on the TV, and I'm not sure if it had been your channel. I think it was at the tail end of the broadcast. It was mentioned about Seattle. That was the first time I thought about Seattle in a long time. If you recall, though, Dr. Goodlow Johnson, who used to be the superintendent here, she was in Seattle at the same time I was, and so we left there together. But again, I have not really dwelled on that. When I was in Seattle, my focus was on supporting the folks that were interested in student outcomes, improving those outcomes. Since I've been back on the East Coast since 2011, that focus has been the same.
Yeah, well, good.
I don't have any additional questions.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it, Don. Thank you.
Thank you.